My name is Travis Bell. I'm the principal here at Acalanes, and this is our first official Dawn's Dialogue webinar of the 2020-2021 school year. As I said, I'm sure participants or attendees are going to be filling in as we go, but we have so much to cover and not enough time to cover it all. So I want to go ahead and get started. I would love to start by taking over your screens with a screen share here. Um, and I do want to just say an official welcome. I thought that maybe I'd start with some memes. You guys know I love my Cohort memes, so perhaps this is what you feel like with the school year starting. It's like a lose-lose. It feels like for the start of the school year. Although there are a lot of wins, and we're going to talk about that this morning. Maybe you feel a little bit like this. This is how I feel at my desk, where it's like everything's fine, I'm fine, we're all okay. Or maybe you feel like this meme that my wife sent me earlier this week as my kids started distance learning. Just getting ready for another day of unconditional motherly love with the kids at home. I know Miss Powers, who's joining us can relate, as she's shared some fun memes with me as well during just this wild time. But I do want to say an official welcome. We have a really full agenda this morning. I do want to do a few introductions of people that you will need to know over the course of this year. And then, of course, we need to talk about some distance learning updates and review some of our distance learning practices, which I would imagine is why most of you are attending this morning. We also have a really phenomenal and robust wellness center and wellness program on our campus. And I think it's going to be important to start the year learning about how to access those resources for our students during this time. So we're going to get to hear from our wellness coordinator and wellness intake specialist on some of the updates coming out of our wellness center, all completely funded by LPI as well. So thank you, LPI. And then we have done some really incredible work with diversity, equity, and inclusion. We have a long way to go, but I know many of our students and our parents and our community members have been engaged this summer in some work around racial justice and equity. And so I'd love to share with you some of that work that we've done as well. I also want to just acknowledge, as I said at the start, we have so much to cover, and really about an hour and a half. I want to make sure we leave some time for question and answers at the end of the presentation. So I'm straddling knowing how much information there is to communicate with how much time we actually have to cover all that information. So I do want to acknowledge that we have some really important events next week that will cover this content in more detail as well. That's on Tuesday, our parent forum on race, which I'll talk more about later in this presentation. And then Thursday, our annual back to school night, which while it will of course look different during this time of COVID, it's still a really important night for engagement and learning about how to help support your child in being successful in their class. So not everything can be covered this morning, but there are some more opportunities to dig deeper and find out more information next week as well. This is kind of like an introduction to Acalanes. I know I've got some families that are attending this webinar right now that are brand new to Acalanes. And I want to first and foremost say welcome. And I'm so sorry that your first experience of Acalanes is falling during this crazy global pandemic and distance learning. I also want to acknowledge that it's still a wonderful school, and we have robust programming, and we're going to see our students be successful this year. To anyone that's returning, welcome back. There's still a ton of updates and important information. So this webinar is really kind of like an overview of all of those kind of start the year, kick off things you need to know, and then we'll have opportunities to, as I said, go deeper as the year goes on. First off, you need to meet your admin team. This is us at one of our Dawn's days, which went from a 1-day, 4-hour event to a 5-day multiple hours. I don't even know how many total hours of Dawn's day, but this is one of those days. And us masked up in our Acalanes masks there. But I also want you to know a little bit about who I am as your principal. I am a dad of 3. That's my family right there. I thought I would share with you. Oh no, the pictures aren't coming up. Well, I have some pictures that were supposed to pop up. I'm not sure what happened. But I have, my oldest is in 1st grade, and she started her distance learning yesterday. And then my middle is a TKer who started her transitional kindergarten experience on Zoom yesterday. And then my youngest there is, he's 2 years old and he just destroys everything, which does not help with the distance learning that is happening at home. I'm going to turn it over to Mike Plant, who's one of our associate principals. So Mike, go ahead, take it away and introduce yourself.
Thank you, Travis, and good morning, everyone. I hope you're doing well. My name is Mike Plant. I'm one of the associate principals here at Acalanes. I know there are more important things to get to, so I'll kind of talk through my slide quickly. Travis, the view just changed, so I don't think my slide is viewable anymore. There it is. Okay. So you probably can tell from my accent that I grew up in England, or at least that I am not a native Californian. I did grow up in the southeast corner of England. I went to attended college in London, and in my last year of college, I met Kristen, my future wife. She is an Arindian, grew up in Arinda and went to Miramoni, so she was from this area. And once I'd visited here a couple times, I made the enormous decision at about halfway through my life, about 22, when I moved over here and started my new life in California with my wonderful wife. My wife is a teacher. She teaches at Miramoni High School at our alma mater, and she's a public speaking and debate teacher, which means I don't get to win any arguments, which is fine. She's right anyways. We have 2 children. You can see them there. My eldest little redhead is Jackson. He's 12. He's a upcoming 7th grader at WCI. And my youngest, Connor, is 10. He's entering 5th grade. He's a big man on campus. Well, when they return, big man on distance learning campus at Buena Vista in Walnut Creek. My other children, I have about 150 other children in my life. They are my Nike sneakers. I collect Nikes. You can see my closet there. It's a compulsion, and it's yeah. I can see. I imagine many of you are shaking your heads or possibly palm to face at that point. But that's my one weird thing. It's my 3rd year at Acalanes after 19 years of teaching math at a school that will not be named, and now I couldn't be happier to continue over here at Acalanes. I talked in my first couple of years about what a welcoming place it was to me, and now I just feel like I'm part of the family. I appreciate being here, and it is a joy to work with such dedicated staff, such incredible students, and such a supportive community. Some of my job, kind of overview of my job here, I oversee the last names M through Z. So if your student is in the second half of the alphabet, I am your contact person for any issues. And some of my some of the things I oversee are textbooks, technology, state testing, and then a million other things that I won't bore you with. The one thing I did want to say about what I oversee is that textbooks is a kind of a current project I'm working on. We still have, I think, more than 1,000 textbooks checked out from last year that still need to be returned. So I would love everyone on this webinar and any friends you have in the community to get the message that if any students still have textbooks from last year, which they do, could we return them to campus, please? Our library is open every day for that. You can bring them to my office any day. Just come on campus and drop those books off with me. We would love to have them. In fact, we have students this year who need some of those books. So if you have any books lying around, I would love them. I think that might be the end of my spiel. I'm so happy to work here. I'm so happy to be back here again. And thanks for everything you guys do to support us as administration and as staff. We greatly appreciate you guys.
All right, thanks, Mike. And I'm going to turn it over to, oh man, what happened to all of our, so my internet dropped off last night at one point, but it said that it had saved all the stuff on slides, but Miss Powers, here's what I'm going to do real quick, because it was in there this morning. I'm going to stop sharing the screen while you introduce yourself, and we'll go from there.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to our first Dawn's Dialogue. It's nice to virtually see all of you here. My name is Andrea Powers, and I am the other associate principal here at Acalanes. I am starting my 3rd year here at Acalanes. And I was previously at Monte Vista High School for 13 years as a leadership teacher and social studies teacher and cheer coach. Anyway, here I am, happy as can be to be starting my 3rd year here at Acalanes. I will tell you right now that the minute I was hired at Acalanes, the red went away because we don't wear red here, and blue has now filled my world. So happy and honored to be here, a part of Acalanes High School. Just a small thing about me, I have 3 lovely children. I have an 8-year-old who is starting 3rd grade this year, and I have 2 twins, boy-girl twins, Jackson and Avery, that are starting 1st grade this year, all virtual, all on a Chromebook. It's been great. So I am happy to be here and working with you guys. My husband teaches still at Monte Vista High School, so we are in a world of education and happy to be a part of it. Here at Acalanes, I'm over student government, leadership, student activities. I'm over facilities, safety, athletics, and I work with the alphabets A through L. I also work with APC, partner groups, try to involve myself as much as I possibly can. The last bit of information is just I am so happy and proud to be working with this Acalanes staff and Acalanes community. I am impressed and grateful every single day. And so thank you to all of you for being here and a part of the conversation, and I'll pass it back on to Mr. Ball.
I am so sorry, Ms. Power. You should see, she has some really cute, can you guys still see, I'm hoping people can still, let's see if we need to do this here. The technical difficulties. You have some really cute pictures of your family that you shared with me.
It's all good.
And so I'm really sorry. Okay, well, there are some other really important introductions. And first off, we have 2 additional panelist members with us today, and these are your Parent Club co-presidents. So I'd love for them to just introduce themselves quickly and share maybe like your students and what grades they're in. So Kristen, why don't you start?
Sure, I'll go first. My name is Kristen LaBrosse, not to be confused with the lovely Kristen that Mike Plant is married to. Different Kristen. Different Kristen. I have 2 children. One is a sophomore boy, and one just was class of 2020, graduating, and in 2 weeks we're heading off to Chicago, where she can quarantine for a couple of weeks before she starts classes. And full admission, we are one of the families who has some textbooks at home. So we will be bringing them in soon.
Thanks, Kristen. And Angela.
Good morning. I'm Angela Ketchum, and I am excited to work with Kristen as one of your co-presidents this year. And I have a sophomore son at Acalanes and a sophomore son who is in college. So just like Kristen, we've got one somewhere else and one here, and we're balancing that. But we're excited to work with you and look forward to the school year.
And what I love is that you've had the experience, both of you, of a kid going from 9th through 12th grade and the joy that it's been to be a part of Acalanes. And so you have really just dove in, and now as the co-president. So they're joining us today as panelist members because our monthly Dons dialogues are facilitated through our Parents Club, and so they help with the coordination of getting some of the questions beforehand, and then helping to facilitate some of the Q&A at the end. I also want to make sure you know who you might receive some contacts from the school, and I want you to know who those people are that are emailing you or talking to you. So in our attendance office, we have Jill Perlman and Tina Goldberg. You might be talking to them if your student is out sick for a day, which we will talk about attendance under distance learning and the need to still call in if your student is unable to attend. Emily Finn is our school registrar. She is at the main desk there in the counseling office. Many of you have worked with her to get your students registered here at Acalanes. Hannah Welling is a testing coordinator and also sends some communications about that. She's out on maternity leave, but we have a wonderful long-term sub that is filling in for her. Wendy Riker is in our College and Career Center, and I believe has already been sending some communications over the summer about how to engage. And then Joyce Larson is principal secretary, and sometimes you'll see some communications that come from my desk, but with her name attached to it. Also, you're going to meet two of these individuals later this morning, but Alan Choi is our wellness coordinator and Casey Sassner is our wellness intake specialist. Devora Citron is our school nurse. You met Angela and Kristen, but I also wanted to introduce or let you know that we have some amazing parent volunteers and support with LPI. Laura Kate Worka and Jennifer Palmer are two parent contacts here for Acalanes High School, and they work really closely with Jennifer Martell and Beth Goldberg, the LPI president and executive director. You'll get to hear from them at our back to school night. Okay, I do want to jump into some distance learning review. And I know that there's going to be a lot of questions as we go, or at least anticipate that there will be a lot of questions as we go. I'm also aware that some questions have already come in the chat, and that I believe some people have already replied to some of those questions. The best place for those questions would be to use that little Q&A button on the bottom, because then we can publish those questions live, and it helps us to keep a record of what questions we need to come back to at the end if they're not answered, and then we can publish those questions as well when we publish the recording of this webinar. So jumping in to some of our distance learning review. First off, when we had to go to in the spring, when we had to transition immediately into a closed campus and distance learning, there was a lot that we didn't know, and it was a really quick transition. Over the course of the spring and summer, I'm sure many of you were following along that there was some legislation that came into effect of what schools are required to do moving forward with distance learning. This is Senate Bill 98, and here's some quick highlights of what that bill essentially addressed. It does still require us to have 180 days of instruction. 240 instructional minutes per school day are still required. We'll talk about what that looks like. Those minutes can be met through a combination of synchronous and asynchronous learning. That's live synchronous, or asynchronous, which would be something done not live, but still is engaging in learning. And that instructional time can be based on the sort of averaged assumed time value of assignments. And again, we can talk more about that. There also is a requirement that student attendance is taken daily, and that there is a live check-in of attendance. This was really, even looking at our district alone, I think it was close to 500 students district-wide that we never had a live check-in with, not just Acalanes, but district-wide, that we never had a live check-in with from March till summer. Maybe they were responding via email or engaging in the work, but we also have a responsibility of making sure that our students are okay. So there is this attendance requirement that came out of some of this legislation. Also recognizing the need for increased regular communication for our parents on the engagement level of students in the classrooms, and some legislation there around upholding the rigor, and really what they mean by that is the standards that are outlined by the state still have to be met and taught within the classroom. And as I mentioned, there has to be this sort of this daily live interaction as part of that attendance. So over the summer, we had a team of stakeholders that worked to develop a best possible schedule for a distance learning. And I'm hoping none of this is new, so I'll move a little quickly through it, but can come back if there are questions that are there. This is the student schedule under distance learning. And there's a few highlights that I just want to point out, and then we'll do a little bit of a deeper look into some of these things. First is you'll notice the Monday schedule. At the top, there's a little red phrase there that says asynchronous instruction, meaning that all instruction on Monday will not be live. So students will not see all of their teachers on Monday, even though they have all of their scheduled classes, periods 1 through 7, starting at 10 a.m. There is, however, a virtual cohort academy that starts at 9. This is what our students have been experiencing this week from 9 to 9:45 is their cohort academy. I'm gonna highlight the specifics of what cohort academies look like in just a slide or two here. As I mentioned, virtual in-person attendance has to be taken every day. So on Monday, that in-person attendance happens in that virtual cohort academy. However, Tuesday through Friday, that in-person attendance will be taken at the start of every period. So while they won't be on Zoom or doing synchronous learning for every minute of every period, there is a requirement for students to join live at the start of every period for that attendance. So there's live check-in on block days for every class, and there needs to be a total of 70 minutes of synchronous lessons or learning that happen per class per week. So if you consider what that looks like, let's just take first period for example. You might have a 10-minute live check-in for attendance and quick introduction on Tuesday from 9 to 9:10. And then there would be a requirement for that teacher to provide a minimum of an additional 60 minutes of instruction on that Thursday first period. And that could be from 9 to 10 with 15 minutes at the end for them to do any sort of asynchronous learning or lesson follow-up that teacher has outlined. That's the minimum per class per week. Some teachers can still expect and hold students for the whole period, for both periods, depending on what the need is for that class. So they might attend first period for 75 minutes on Tuesday, and then again for first period for 75 minutes on Thursday. However, we have done a lot of work and professional development on what is best for our students and what the research shows is best for online distance learning. And we know that there needs to be a balance of asynchronous with synchronous. The research really shows that about 30 to 35% of synchronous learning is really effective for students so that they are able to get that engagement with teachers, but that they can still hold a high level of learning with asynchronous for the other percent of that. So we know that there's a balance that has to happen. There's been so many questions and concerns about screen time and the amount of students just sitting on Zoom, and we've been trying to coordinate and work with our parent community on how to best help support those students at home. I want to also show you that there's another schedule, and this would be the staff schedule. So on Mondays, what our staff are doing after that virtual cohort academy, it's not just a day off for them in the afternoon from 9:45 on. There are staff meetings, department meetings, collaboration meetings, grade-alike meetings that are required of them between 10 and noon. And those are coordinated at the site level. And then then they have their lunch, but then from 12:45 to the end of their contract day at 3:20, there are optional professional development offerings, continued curricular development time, holding office hours for students if they think that's necessary or needed. That's also a great time for some small groups or clubs to meet. There can be student meetings that happen with teachers there, parent-teacher meetings that happen during that time. So they're still on and engaged for the rest of the afternoon on Monday. Part of our recognized need for this was knowing that we did need to build in some time where we could hold these meetings and some of these engagements with students that wouldn't pull them from class because of how sacred that synchronous time is going to be for students when they're online. So you'll notice even the intentional start of 9 o'clock for our students provides an opportunity in the morning from 7:30 to 9 for teacher meetings, for both for collaboration, but also for parent-student teacher meetings. There's time there in the mornings for that to happen, as well as in the afternoon on Monday. And we know we need to provide some continuing, ongoing professional development and support for staff as we roll out our distance learning with the amount of change that is there, moving to Canvas and engagement through Zoom and all that sort of stuff. I did tell you that we were going to look specifically at the Cohort Academy versus Academy. So I have a couple slides on that, and then I want to highlight some of the specifics of that professional development. Cohort Academy was really added with this idea of community building, social emotional support, check-ins with students, academic engagement support, and some targeted space for what we knew was going to be needed for school and district curriculum deployment. As I'm sure many of you saw in my email yesterday, that's what's been happening all week, Thursday and Friday. Specifically, we're focused on race and racial equity, that we know we need to get some of this curriculum out there, helping our students build have a toolkit of engagement for having conversations about race and racial equity. So that's what's been happening Thursday and what happened this morning in those cohort academies. The first 2 cohort academies were really built around an introduction for students to online learning and what that looked like, as well as how to be successful during distance learning. We really see Cohort Academy as essential for community connection and engagement. There's a lot of research out there on the importance of students feeling connected to school, and that is significantly harder to do when you're in a distance learning platform. That was one of our core reasons for still holding an in-person Dawn's Day that was safe and physically distant and masked, because we knew we needed our students in our community, specifically our new students and our new parents, to feel connected to a physical space, that helps build connection with a space. Also, having that consistent cohort of students with teacher support can help build that community connection and engagement. This is different than Academy, which we have had for the past 4 years as we switched to a block schedule. And Academy was really added to provide time during the school day for targeted intervention and support for students. What was happening before was that students would have to meet with a teacher during brunch, during lunch, before school, or after school. Maybe if a student had a 7th period off and the teacher wasn't teaching 7th period, they could meet during that time, but there wasn't room during the day for that targeted intervention and support for students, which is why we built in an embedded Academy period during our regular block schedule days. We believe that Academy is essential for all students to learn at high levels, because we know that not all students learn in the same way and they don't learn at the same time, and that they need different levels of support for that academic engagement and achievement. And so we knew that even under distance learning, we still felt that Academy was essential. Looking a little bit closer at the cohort academies, it is required for all students on Monday mornings, and attendance is taken. It is an absence if the student isn't there, and there will be follow-up, just like our standard attendance process if students aren't in attendance. It functions a lot like a homeroom. They're in small groups with the same students and the same teacher throughout the year. We tried as best as we could to try to keep grade level pure cohorts, but there are many that aren't. But we really, what we were committed to was having students assigned to a teacher that they have during the regular school day. Content will vary throughout the year, but as I discussed, we've already deployed some of our equity lessons. We see this as almost like case management, that there's our 9th grade seminars or information for our students. This would be a great place for some wellness interaction as well, college and career engagement and the like. Our academy, however, it's still required and attendance is still taken, but it's available for students to seek out extra academic support. They might be tagged by a teacher and then required to attend a specific academy for that additional intervention and support. And there's other opportunities under distance learning that we believe Academy can really fill, such as some leadership activities, clubs, and stuff like that. Over the last several months, district and staff-wide, we really have been working hard to design a schedule under distance learning that we think is the most effective and beneficial for our students and our parent community. We know there are many stakeholders that help make a school not only run and be successful, but stakeholders that our decisions impact. And so we tried to get as much community, parent, student, staff input before designing schedules. So we've been doing a lot of this work about refining some of those guidelines of what that looks like. How do we transition to a more robust learning management system? That's our Canvas platform. I'll share more in a minute. And how do we collaborate around these instructional shifts and prepare our campus, knowing that we too want as much as soon as possible to get our students back on our campus. So we need to make sure that our campus is equipped and ready to welcome students back in a manner that's safe once we're able to do so. And we also have been working really hard to communicate as frequently as possible with students and families to keep everyone informed. I know I've been saying it feels like there's just like a mountain of communication that needs to get out there with everything that's so new, and how much needs to be communicated. And so I encourage everyone watching, continue to read the emails that come out. I know it just continues, that those inboxes fill up really quickly, but emails coming from the school, we're really intentional about what comes out, and how can we create, how can we make sure that our communications have just the essential information that you need to know. So continue to read those. In terms of what some of that specific staff development has looked like, I did just a screen grab of some of our summer programming. But over the course of the summer, we had teachers and staff attend conferences and camps. And then we also provided some intense and intentional district trainings for teachers. We call this our Summer Institute. And while it is optional for teachers, they do get paid. And we had a significantly high turnout of teacher engagement for our Summer Institute, because our teachers know they needed to come back prepared and equipped, ready to roll with distance learning. So I have two sort of examples here, and you can kind of see on the screen, but this was just a quick screen grab of some of the breakout sessions that happened on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of that Summer Institute week. There were additional days and additional offerings, but I just wanted you to see like a quick kind of screen grab of what that looked like. So everything there from a lot of use on Canvas, knowing that that's being the primary system that we're using, and the level of incredible engagement that can happen on Canvas. We needed our teachers to be proficient with the Canvas learning management system, sessions on Zoom, and how to really engage students through Zoom. And then other things that we knew were really important and essential for our school and our school community, such as holding conversations about race, knowing that we were rolling out these racial equity lessons and making sure that our staff were equipped and ready to go for that. I also had, I put in here just, you can see, so when you click on the link, it kind of took you to the information and the Zoom link, but obviously those aren't happening anymore. But I wanted you to see, like, this is an example. We actually had one of our teachers, along with a district support staff, did like screencasting in Canvas. That was one of the breakout sessions that you could attend, where there was a description there of what that looks like. It talked about if sessions were repeated, and then the little R meant that that session was recorded. So our teachers have this platform of access to these lessons that have been recorded. So even if they weren't able to attend that day or that session or Summer Institute at all, they still had access. And many are continuing to jump back and reference some of those specific intensives and training for our staff. Additionally, we've done some site-based work. Before the first day of school, there was 2 days of professional development, as well as a lot of time for collaboration and course-alike teams to meet. And I just included, again, just a screen grab of some of our breakout sessions that we offered at a site level at Acalanes. So stuff about Canvas, how to do assessments and focus on intervention and support for our students. Catherine Walton, who has she has a whole release period focused on culture, climate, and equity through LPI. Again, thank you, LPI, for that. She designed those first 2 cohorts that our students did, focusing on rapport building and teacher connection. So staff had to attend and learn about that. There was Zoom engagement, distance learning guidelines, and then Academy and Teach More for our teachers. So there were offerings as well during those professional development days, as well as intensive all staff professional development, specifically around race and equity, and then other distance learning engagement that we knew our staff needed to know. This week, as you know, students are engaged from 9 to 9:45 in their cohort academies, but before that time and after that time, there's additional staff time for curriculum building and training. So we've had staff meetings, I think it's been every day, Powers and Plant, right? Like every day.
Literally every day.
Literally every day, where we are doing targeted training for our staff on what they need to know, and then providing additional optional PD offerings that they can jump in and meet with teachers and get support or other professionals and to get support on what that staff development looks like. The reason I share all this with you is because I want you to know that what you saw in the spring is not going to be what you see come Monday, that there's a significant level of increased engagement and professional development that has happened, and you can expect more of our school for what that's gonna look like, because we hold ourselves to that same standard, knowing that we want to maintain the high level of rigor and engagement that we expect of our students and of our staff at Acalanes. You've heard me mention Canvas a couple times. It's our new learning management system. It's replacing School Loop. I know many of you are coming in familiar with School Loop. I also know that many students actually took some maybe junior college or college courses over the summer, since, you know, we're all around and it's COVID. And so many students actually came back and expressed that they had used Canvas at the college in their college courses, and how engaging and effective it was. And that's great. We love that because our students are coming back. Many of our students came in having seen Canvas before. But what Canvas will do is it is going to be the host for all things distance learning. Some of the feedback in the spring was we had teachers using Google Sites, School Loop, other websites that they had created, Google Hangouts, Zoom. I mean, it was like all over the place, and you were trying to navigate where do I need to go, when, and how for these to engage with my class on distance learning. Canvas is now the hub for all of those, for everything. So anytime at the start of every class, that is where those students go. For Cohort Academy, for periods 1 through 7, they go to Canvas. Everything will be hosted there. The Zoom links will be found in Canvas. It's been a little different this week because we just need everyone to get on the same page. So part of that is the training of our students. That's why there were emails about checking your email for the Zoom link. Moving forward after this week, everything will be on Canvas. Grades are incorporated into that. Assignments are incorporated into that. I put on here, parents, what you can see currently. We only have access through the Canvas app right now for parents, and are working on building the desktop version so you can log in online. But currently what parents can see are the homepage for the course that their child has, assignments, and grades. There should only be one course in there that you see, and it would be a cohort course that your teacher has published that has some of the curriculum that we've deployed over the course of this week. Some teachers have already published their courses, even though courses don't officially start until next Monday when they see their teacher for that first time. But you might be able to see that homepage, and then you'd be able to see any of the published assignments and then published grades that have been inputted. Obviously, there shouldn't be any grades at this point. I did forget to mention, jumping back, both Cohort Academy, our cohort time and our academy time, those are ungraded periods designed for student support and connection. So there shouldn't be any grades currently published in there. We've provided some quizzes and engagement through some of the lessons, but those were really just to kind of track who's checking in and going through our modules and that sort of stuff. And then we're able to follow up on our end for those students that haven't done that. The teacher accounts should all be live by Monday, August 17th. So when you as a parent log into Canvas, you would see all of your students' classes and the homepage of that teacher with any assignments that have been posted. When we deploy the desktop version, you'll have a little bit more access, but you'll still be operating in a view-only observer sort of count. So you won't, any sort of link in there won't be live for parents to see, but you'll have a little bit more in terms of what you can view in the course. That actually should that should roll out this weekend, and then we'll be sending some communication next week about how parents can access the desktop version for Canvas. You've heard me mention a lot about curriculum development, but I did just want to mention that part of what our staff are doing through their professional development time, their course-alike time, their collaboration time is this engagement in curricular development. We know that with the reduction of instructional minutes and synchronous time, that it's absolutely essential for our teachers to identify what are those standards that have longevity and are necessary for progress that our students need to know to be prepared for the next course. So really tightening up the absolutely must have, and then filling in with some of the really nice to know stuff. But they have been doing that curricular development and that alignment. We want the experience to be the same for all of our students, no matter what teacher they have. And so there has been a tightening of that collaboration and the course-alike work that our teachers have been doing. Students are still graded, so really aligning those grading practices and knowing that assessments, both formative and summative assessments, are going to look different under distance learning. So what does that look like for our students, and making sure that they are communicating frequently, as SB 98 outlines that need for that increased parent communication. It used to be you would get a halfway through the quarter of progress on grades was the minimum requirement for a publish of grades, and then your quarter one would be the next mark for that under distance learning. And even when we transition to the hybrid model, hopefully that would be you would be getting grade and engagement updates every 2 or 3 weeks from our teachers. Materials and supplies, again, every student is one-to-one with Chromebook. That's only possible because of LPI. So a huge thank you to LPI, which I hope you know, when I'm thinking LPI, I'm thinking all of our incredibly generous parent community for helping fund LPI and helping us meet the needs for the high support on our campus for our students. Our primary mode of distribution was during our DONS days. So that was textbooks, novels, and Chromebooks. As Mr. Plant discussed in his introduction. Again, Powers, I just feel so bad about your pictures. I'm so sorry. But as Mr. Plant discussed, we weren't able, not every student was able to get every textbook that they need or every novel that they needed. We also know that some students have changed their class schedule, so maybe they have a different English teacher and need a different novel now. So we do have makeup next week from Tuesday through Friday from 2 to 4 p.m. You don't need to reserve a time to come in. We do have some markers. You need to maintain your physical distance, wear a mask. It will be through our library, and you can come at any time. If a textbook was out when you walked through Don's Day, you might just want to send an email to our librarian and just make sure that it's in before you come down, in case we haven't gotten it in. But we should have all supplies for all students, all needed supplies for all students next week, Tuesday through Friday. And then over the course of the year, we know we're going to need to schedule times for periodic instructional material pickup, and that would include things like potentially take-home lab equipment or art supplies, but it also might be the next novel in your English class or something along those lines. So we know we're going to need to provide that, and you can expect some more information as early as next week in terms of what that sort of flow and process is going to look like on our campus. Okay, I know I'm talking a lot. And there's a lot more to go, but I did want to do a quick overview of the first 2 weeks. We're on Friday, so I hope you know what Tuesday and Wednesday looked like. Our students were learning all about Canvas on that first day. I heard from many of you that they were done within, I think the average time when because I'm able to go in Canvas and see how much time students are spending individually. When I look at the average time, it was around an hour and a half or 2 hours of what students spent on Canvas for that first day. And then it was maybe a little bit higher on that second day. The second day was really focusing on student support, some of the resources available on our campus from our Parent Club sponsored peer tutoring program, which is incredible, to Wellness Center, to other sorts of college and career, other sorts of engagement for our students, and some of the code of conduct and policies that we expect for our students to know. You can ask your students about that. They all went through it. There were videos from the admin team, from me. They should be able to speak to that. And then, as mentioned yesterday and today, we have deployed 2 lessons on equity, specifically looking at, the first one is developing a toolkit for how do we have difficult conversations, specifically some of those hard conversations about race, but it's just the sort of protocol which we've actually been talking about on our campus for the last 3 or 4 years. It's the same stuff that our care workshop leaders would deploy during care workshops. Today, they're looking more about identifying your own race and how do you identify, and that's what the lessons are looking at today. I did share out a communication. There's some resources you can click on to help engage with your student at home on what some of these conversations have looked like in their cohorts, and we hope that that conversation is happening at home as well. On Monday of next week, there will be no cohort meeting from 9 to 9:45. Students will have spent 4 days straight meeting with their cohort class. And we felt it was better suited for our students, rather than having asynchronous lessons from teachers that they've never met, that they'll have synchronous engagement with their teachers following the Monday schedule of periods 1 through 7. So starting at 10 o'clock, periods 1 through 7, they'll be meeting with all of their teachers. That will be a time for attendance that is required to be taken, but also an introduction to the teacher and the course, how to get the syllabus, making sure they have all the materials that they need, what might they need to come to the library and pick up. So it is there'll be quick classes because the schedule is quick, but they will go through all their classes periods 1 through 7 on Monday. We think it's important to meet the teacher and build that connection. Tuesday will follow our regular distance learning block schedule, and then Wednesday they're actually going to go back to their cohort. This was originally going to be our 3rd equity lesson, but feedback from both students and staff members is that they actually need more time of connecting and talking about some of the equity lessons from the first from yesterday and today. So I actually think this will be kind of like a review and check-in of where students are at with that, but they won't have the rest of the morning to do additional lessons. Rather, they'll follow the regular schedule of periods 4, 5, 6, and then the 0 period that's outlined on the schedule there. We also felt that there wasn't a need for Academy as an intervention period on that first Wednesday, because they won't even have had all of their classes yet. Thursday through Friday, however, will follow the outlined schedule, and Friday there will be the first academy, which is student choice for that academy on Friday, and we'll be sending specific communication to students for how to sign up for their academy and where to go, and we'll also send that communication home to parents as well. There's still a little bit of sort of influx decisions that have to happen between the principals at all 4 sites and some of the district leadership of how specifically to monitor that academy time and that attendance time, especially when you look at a day like Friday, where students will have had just each of their classes twice, and there might not be some specific intervention need. But that also can be a time for clubs and that sort of stuff. So we'll be communicating more information about that. Okay, I am recognizing that I've talked for 51 minutes. And so at this point, I would like to turn it over. I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. And instead, I'm going to be bringing over 2 additional panel members. So Casey Sassner, you just got promoted to a panelist, so welcome. And then Alan Choi, you too are being promoted as a panelist. And so I am bringing them over, and they're going to talk a little bit about our wellness center and how they're engaging during this virtual distance learning time. So Casey and Alan, welcome.
You know, you cut out, Travis, when you said I was promoted. So I was like,
promoted, yeah.
I'm like, oh, to a panelist. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having us. Alan, are you going to be working on sharing the presentation?
Yeah, I'll do a share screen right now.
Yeah. So I am always really sensitive to when we have a lot of information and when we're trying to get through it quickly to not feel rushed. So, so we're going to try not to feel rushed. And I hope that our people who are watching don't feel rushed by this pace. But Travis, I learned so much as a parent from what you just shared. So can I just dig in? I see, I'm just going to dig in. I don't think my video's on, but I think that's totally fine. Opening up with, if you follow us on Instagram, you would have seen that our theme for the year is try it on. And what we were trying to do with this is think about the context within which we're operating of this pandemic and distance learning. And Alan and I reflected on what was working for us as a team. And where we netted out was that the reason why we were collaborating and enjoying our collaboration so much and being so effective was that we were so open to this idea of trying on new ways of thinking, new ways of being, and really being curious and exploring. So Alan, if you can advance to the next slide. One of the things that I'm trying out every day in terms of new ways of thinking is practicing gratitude and appreciation, because right now, I think it might not be what's naturally there for us because we're nervous and we are having to adapt to all kinds of things. So I first want to express gratitude to Lafayette Partners in Education. And when I say that, my thanks are to you, to all of the parents who support Lafayette Partners in Education in whatever way that they can, because LPI does so much. And wellness is a really vital service that is for all. It's for everybody. It's not just crisis counseling. And we're going to get into what that is. Okay, so go ahead, Alan, to the next thing. I'm trying to accelerate what we had in mind. So Alan, who is the coordinator, he's a social worker. He is my supervisor. So he oversees all wellness activities, is going to kind of get into our framework.
Yeah, thanks, Casey. So, well, I'm Alan. And so, you know, if you envision how wellness works within AHS, you know, we sort of see it as 3 different buckets. Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3. Tier 1 is really the school-wide interventions that we provide to all students. So, for example, that might be going in to do a class presentation. And I'm sorry, I am still, and this is me trying it on, being able to try on things that are different. Okay, Alan, do not touch the screen. That's what I keep doing. I keep wanting to touch and move things because I'm a curious person. Apologies. So tier 1 would be class presentations, having a physical wellness center where any student can come in, collaborating with teachers, staff on different wellness activities, the resources we provide. So that's tier 1, and we're still doing all of this stuff. As you can see, before last year when I gave this presentation, it was, you know, the black was just, it was just in black. The red is what we've had to do to adapt to distance learning. And luckily we still do the same thing, but with each little bullet, we sort of have to change how we do it. So our goal is still to provide the full bevy of services that we think students need. So that's tier 1. Tier 2 would be interventions that are more targeted to specific students. So that might be being part of the student resource team meeting to support specific students who might be struggling. Providing individual short-term counseling, doing brief interventions for students who might be going through some substance use concerns, performing restorative circles when there are interpersonal problems between students, and sort of helping facilitate a restorative solution. So that's tier 2, and there's a lot more, and I'm not going to go into every little detail. That would take forever. So tier 3, those are the more intensive interventions. So that's for our level of need, students who need the most at the particular moment. So that's doing the crisis intervention. When we talk to students, we regularly, sometimes they may be feeling really down. So we are there to do the suicide assessments and to support with the follow-up that the families may need and the students may need, and more intensive individual counseling. So that's just a brief overview of how we work and how we still continue to operate in distance learning. Important for you to know, how do students get referred for individual counseling or group counseling or more individualized services? Last year is a simple matter of filling out a referral form, and then we just pull the student and then have a chat with them and maybe continue services through that. So with distance learning, we've had to change it up a little bit. It's a bit more clunky, but we're trying to always work out better ways to connect with students. So the first step is really receiving a referral. So staff, faculty, parents, and students themselves can complete a referral form for themselves or for other students. And we also, since we work very closely with our school staff in different ways, we actually regularly receive referrals through our school counselors, our SRT teams. Once we receive the referral, I review and prioritize the referral. Depending on the circumstances, we may contact a student for an initial intake call and an introduction into wellness services. And then once we do that initial intake, if there's a further need for individualized counseling, we will assign the referral to a support counselor or myself. And then finally, with the visits. Right now, we're just bracing for a semester. I know that it hasn't been decided how long this will last, but for the sake of our need to identify stability, we're just planning on doing telehealth for the rest of the semester until we hear otherwise. And so, for the first full mental health or telehealth visit, we first need to contact parents and receive consent. After that, we can offer our students short-term school-based therapy sessions via phone or via Zoom. And then at the end and during our connections with the students, we're constantly trying to provide our families with any outside community resources, whether it's a matter of looking for a list of available therapists to low cost and free cost therapy resources, and even resources for other needs. And here is the referral link. It's a bit.ly to make it simple. And if you're concerned about your student, you can go through this link as well. And this link has been published to all of our staff and all of our students to make it very easy for any student to access wellness. So Casey, why don't you go through some of the highlights of last year?
Yeah, great. And if I can add one thing to the referral process, just as a parent, a lot of times as parents, we hear about our children's friends' struggles. Encourage your child, who may not want to tell you who the other kid is, to just check out the referral. It's a really friendly process that results in a friendly contact and inquiry. So really use that as a tool. I'm not going to go over all of these, but just talking a little bit about what we did over the past year before we went into shelter in place. Thanks to a grant from the Parent Club, which we really appreciated, we were able to pilot a social emotional learning academy session. We had I think several before we went into shelter in place. And we did those in conjunction with the school psychologists. They were led by mental health support counselors, folks like Alan. I was going to be doing something that were more in the space of organizational skills, communication skills, and mindfulness based stress reduction. We are going to figure out a way to reboot that. We had support groups for all kinds of things. We introduced cognitive behavioral therapy worksheets that were a process of working together with students to figure out how they think about the way that they think. So basically metacognition and working with our thoughts and emotions. We launched a positivity program that lasted, I think, the 2 weeks before we went into shelter in place, which was really successful, called 3 Good Things. It's a really interesting program that is backed up by research. You can look into that. We did a ton of classroom presentations, which was one of the benefits to Alan's position becoming a significantly more hours position than it had been the year before. So we're getting all kinds of psychoeducation into the classroom. We'll be doing more of that this year. We deepened our integration with our school counseling department. Very tight, work very collaboratively with them. And of course, we're part of the student review team. Parent ed events, we did those. We'll be doing those again. What you see highlighted in red is what we immediately put into place. I mean, within a week, basically a week and a half of the shelter in place, we switched over to telehealth, which was the virtual mental health services. So counseling was able to continue, but through telehealth. We did a ton of Zoom groups that we used for learning on all kinds of things: mindfulness, games, journaling, support talk, connection. And we created a much more dynamic and vibrant Instagram account, because we found that was sort of our best way to reach students in the spring. So want to advance that, Alan?
So where are we going this year? I mean, last year it was just a lot of things that we just threw spaghetti in the wall, especially after shelter in place. We actually had a lot of learning, some successes, some things that didn't take as well. So we're taking that learning, and then we're going to try to continue to offer services that really connect with students, because that's what really matters. Last year, it was a year of disconnection amongst wellness, amongst the teachers and students. So our goal is to be able to connect as much as possible. We're going to do that by, we're going to continue telehealth. Last year, we sort of had a Band-Aid telehealth. It was like we put it together really quick. You know, it's a little bit more restrictive because we didn't have a lot of time to get it together. This year, we're hoping to expand it so that we can really more effectively reach more students, be able to just dial a number, contact a student, do a quick check-in without a lot of logistical difficulties, which is what we ran into last year. We're going to have an ongoing dialogue and survey the students to understand what they want. You know, what's the point of providing something if it's not something that they are asking for or need? We are part of the UHSD racial equity initiatives, and I know Travis is going to talk a little bit more about that later, and that's also part of the Academy cohorts. We're going to increase some SEL resources to students, teachers, and families. And we're going to talk a little bit about that later, because we have a little preview for parents like ourselves on how we can manage this distance learning. And we're going to develop, we're going to focus also on peer support programming. Students are really their best resource and the resource that they connect with the most. So we're going to try to develop that even more. We're pushing into synchronous classrooms. We're going to more deeply integrate with the AHS student leadership, and also do some district-wide parent education workshops in conjunction with the other wellness centers in the district. So we have a lot going on this year, and we hope that we're just going to keep trying until we feel that we can reach every student.
So I do have a timer running on us, Travis, and I'm watching it. We're going to take every second you gave us. So we're not going to go into what social emotional learning is in a really extensive way, but I do want parents to have the broad strokes, because you probably have heard SEL again and again. You've probably heard how important it is to distance learning, and you have probably heard what priority it is for both the district and our site. And our site at Acalanes, I'm really proud to say, social emotional learning has always been really central to what we do. We just haven't really branded it. And we're going to be much more intentional about how we program around it. What you need to know about SEL and what I'm sharing here, what we're sharing here with this slide, is that this is not a program that gets purchased, right? This is a framework that is SEL no matter what program you buy or what program you subscribe to. And it basically has 5 pillars in it. In different programs, you might see different languaging around what those core skills are. But this is completely basic to social emotional learning. And Alan, if you can go to the next slide, what we have done, what Alan and I did was broke out each of those 5 core competencies: self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making, and paired them with the things we already, the ways we already foster those in wellness, and how we'll be kind of having that infuse everything that we do. And so I think, Alan, I think we should leave it at that because we're at 12 minutes. I would encourage parents to go to the CASEL website and click on the section that is for parents, because the other important thing about social emotional learning is it is for adults and kids. So it's not something we do to our kids, we do it to ourselves, right? We work on these, we develop these competencies for ourselves, we encourage them in our kids, and we mirror off of each other these core competencies. Alan, because it's really important, anything else you want to say on this?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think let me give a quick preview so that we could sort of give something to parents, for parents to take away. You can, this is something that a resource that we're developing and that we'll put on our website and publish to the Parents Club newsletter. So this is really important for us as we're thinking about our first, our introduction this year. How do we use, as like I'm a parent myself, and my distance learning starts next week with my kid. How are we actually supposed to do this? You know, last year we thought that it was going to be short term. You can play around, you can experiment, but how can we actually intentionally do this so that we can support our students during this time of pandemic? And there are 4 steps. I'm not going to go through the 4 steps, but I do want to just talk really briefly about step 1, which is create a strong foundation for SEL during this time. It's really time for us to really re-envision the environment that our students are our kids are learning in, because distance learning is not the same as you already know, it's not the same as what they experience in in-person learning. Everything about it is different. And for us to hold the same expectations and the same rules, that is not right. That doesn't help our students, our kids, and it doesn't help us. So really, it's really important for us to really take a step back and really work with our kids to re-envision what learning looks like. And you can do this by having some discovery conversations with their kids, asking them to understand their comfort level about distance learning, any social emotional concerns, what their current outlook is for the school year and specific classes. You can share your own experience with the pandemic. As parents who are working ourselves, we're constantly burdened with that thought of how do we manage all the pieces and do it well. You can develop some shared agreements that are going to be new and specific to this time period, to what they're doing right now. Offer help if they ask. We have a lot of we have resources that our kids may not know, and they have resources that they can share with us too. And what we're really trying to do is really allow for an environment of emotional safety, social support that really emphasizes that academics are fundamental, but so is social support and emotional support. So these are a little checklist of things that you can do. You don't have to do everything, but really take some time to think about what you can intentionally do this year. There's a little bit more here. We're going to publish it later on. Here's a step 2. I'm not going to go through it, but I do want to remind you to take care of yourself, because we're only as good as we feel ourselves. If we're feeling stressed out, If we're feeling angry, that's gonna show up for the kids. We're not gonna be nice to them. They model us very, very closely, no matter how hard they try not to. So keep that in mind. And there's some common sense tips here. There are steps 3 and 4. And all this, again, I'll be putting it on our website. This is all derived from the Castle SEL resource. So you can go on their website and learn more. And they have tons of tools, tons of links. And yeah, we're just trying our best as parents. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Alan and Casey, thank you so much. We're just indebted to the work that you've been doing through our Wellness Center and launching that. I think we're in our 3rd year of the Wellness Center, and it's just been an incredible resource for our students in our community. Thanks to our generous parent community, their funding through LPI helps make that happen. And I don't know if you do your own sort of personal check right now. Like, I just already feel more centered from listening to that. So I really appreciate just, again, your guys' continued engagement and support for our students and just our whole Acalanes community. So you guys can remove yourself as panelists. It's not a demotion, Casey, but
that was quick. It was such a fast promotion and quick call.
But I am going to take over screens again. I'm very cognizant of the time. It's 11:12, and I still have some important information to share and some great questions that have come in. So let me actually bring this back up, and then I will share here. Sorry. I'm realizing with 2 screens, which has become necessary. Are you guys only seeing like part of that? Is this like an awkward view? Powers, you're shaking your head, yes?
Yeah,
okay.
I only thought of it.
Yes, it's a somewhat awkward view, Travis.
It's a somewhat awkward view. Okay, let me stop sharing my screen here and see if I can make this happen normally. For some reason, it's not going full screen.
Why would it right now?
What's that?
I said, of course not. Why would it right now?
Yeah. I'm going to just refresh my browser real quick. So what I want to cover next here is really looking at our diversity, inclusion, and equity work that we have been working on. But I think it's going to be okay. I just think for the sake of us presenting, this is going to be what it looks like. Sorry, I promise I'm getting there. Okay, looks relatively normal. Yeah. Okay. Powers, I just want to say, like, I also threw this in because look how cute your family is. So, and Norman, you gotta love Norman. Okay, so I want to talk about some of the diversity, equity, and inclusion work that we've done. A huge thank you to our parent leads for this, Natasha Kapoor-Kuna and Rupi Krishnan. Additional thanks to Netta Wilson, who was helping lead that work as well, but just recently moved, actually. And so to Natasha and Rupi, they've been doing some incredible work over the summer, a lot of work over the summer, meeting at the district level and at a site level with me and other site members to help build this. What the DEI committee has done is really established a critical vision and mission statement for us to hold at the center of the work that we're doing around diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it's here for you to read and is published on our website. So I don't want to read it for you here, but it centers all around this idea of how do we create and hold a space at Acalanes where all students feel that they are welcomed and that they belong and that it's safe to show up fully as who they are and engage in the necessary learning that we know we need to provide for our students. At the site level, what we've done is we've actually created a site racial equity plan that has really like 4 components, and each component has its own goal within in there. So we have your mission, your vision, and these are individual goals that we think will help us achieve our mission and vision. And then under the, I actually have it linked, but I'm not going to click on it, but under each area of focus are a list of action items with a timeline and accountability of who is responsible for overseeing this and making it happen. The first goal is around school culture, and this reflects this idea that we establish a positive school climate where all students, staff, and community members treat each other with respect, foster belonging, and actively work against racism and for racial justice. A lot of this work will actually come out of our teacher on special assignment, who's again funded through LPI. Her name's Catherine Walton, doing a lot of work around that school culture and organizing. And then we have like a staff equity team and a student equity council that will be helping to facilitate some of this work on our campus. We know it's important to engage in our community with this, so a lot of this is facilitated and done through the DEI Parent Committee, and that's that we will partner with parent and guardian groups to foster anti-racist education and advocacy in our school and community. As far as curriculum goes, Acalanes will ensure that all students engage in required curricula that fosters an appreciation for a diverse array of cultures and specifically addresses race, racism, and anti-racist strategies. We've been doing some of this work over the last couple years, specifically targeting our English curriculum, making sure that we don't just have a novel list of all dead white guys that you read as these in your curriculum for English novels, but that you have a diverse voice that students will encounter through their English curriculum. We also know there's some specific targeted work that we have to do with our social studies framework and making sure that it's not just a Eurocentric framework of history, but that it engages all aspects of history and brings in those, again, diverse multiple perspectives. For systems and policy, that we examine our current systems and policies and administrative practices to identify and implement necessary changes that are culturally responsive and anti-racist. So this would look at things like our code of conduct and how are we engaging in some of these things. So I want to share just a few of these celebrations that have already happened because of this engagement around diversity, equity, and inclusion. There's been summer meetings with the DEI Parent Committee. There's been student meetings and staff meetings. I just feel so proud to be a part of this district. Our board approved a racial equity policy. I believe it was 2 weeks ago. We have an incredible board that recognizes the need to actually take a written firm stand on what that's going to look like in our district. Many districts have an equity policy. We've had an equity policy for about 4 or 5 years, maybe a little bit longer. But to actually name a racial equity policy as a board policy is something very few districts have done. And I'm really proud of our district and our board for doing that. So that would be a great email to send to board members of your appreciation for that. Development of and deployment of student curriculum. We've talked about that with some of these equity lessons. Development and introduction to our site racial equity plan with stakeholders. This is the first time rolling out to a larger parent group, but key parent stakeholders have seen this. Our staff reviewed it at their staff development day. It provided insight and input of what this looks like in their curriculum and how to engage. We are rolling out a bias reporting incident process. It's a BRIC will be the acronym, but it rolled out to students on Wednesday that they can submit instances that they see of whether that's micro assaults or microaggressions that they see that maybe don't even rise to the level of needing to inform an administrator, but they want to document that happened. We want to make sure that we have a way as a metric to see that we're improving in these categories. And that committee will both look at those coming in and then provide feedback in terms of what is the a restorative practice that needs to happen based off of what's come in. So there'll be a committee of people. Alan talked a little bit about that. We'll have a wellness representation on that committee, as well as an administrator, teachers, and students. We've updated our student code of conduct. There's parent education events scheduled. We have a student equity council that has members of student club that has like the president or an appointed member from student clubs that are focused on equity. That would be everything from our BSU, Latinos Unidos, LGBTQ+, like those sort of student clubs that are meeting to organize around diversity, equity, and inclusion. We have curriculum development, which I highlighted a little bit about, and we actually have a new course that's our Intro to Ethnic Studies course. I believe only 2 sites in our district are running that, and I'm proud that we're one of the sites that are running that course. We know that there's a lot of next steps. I just want to name a few. A lot of our next steps are outlined in our racial equity plan, which you can again access online, but our campus programming and implementation needs to happen over the course of this year. Continued parent education and organizing with the community, partnering with the Lafayette district, that it starts before high school. And then an audit of our student programming, engaging with our student leadership programming, and then again, using the bias incident reporting committee to track and monitor to see what are those areas that we might not even know about that we need to step in and engage to help make change. So there is a lot of work there. But I did want to highlight, there's been a couple communications that have come out about this, but join in the conversation. We've got an amazing opportunity next Tuesday from 6:30 to 8:30. It's put on by APC, facilitated in partnership with me, our district support, Lori Watson, we've contracted to do some of this equity work with us, and then of course, our DEI committee helping to facilitate, but it is next Tuesday. I know you can't click on this link because it's a webinar, but the link was sent out. I just copied and pasted, this is the exact verbiage from the Acalanes Parent Club website, so you can go there and access this as well. And then looking ahead, that there's some great things happening, from a 21-week racial equity challenge to our book club that I had sent out a communication after the murder of George Floyd as a response to read How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram X. Kendi. And so I know many of you have been reading along with me over the course of the summer, and we will launch that book club. I think we're close to landing on the date. I know we had a date, and then there's another commitment that was there, so we'll get there. But I think it's that first or second week in September for that. And again, you can find this all on the Parent Club website and our website as well. Okay, I do acknowledge that it's 11:23, but we had some previously submitted questions and answers, and so I want to make sure that I respond to some of those. And then I know there's some questions and answers that have been coming in as I've been talking straight for an hour and a half here. Okay, so we talked about there's no grade in the cohort class or the academy period. This second question about the adjustment of expectations, I think we talked a little bit about this in terms of some of the staff development and the engagement level through a distance learning model. I do want to acknowledge, though, however, that the AP curriculum, not the honors curriculum. Honors is a site-based thing that we as a site own, and that's adjusted. But the AP curriculum actually has a different entity that mandates what curriculum needs to be covered, and that's called College Board. And so you can go, if you go to any, like to the course of study for an AP class, you're able to access what the College Board is expecting of the students. And the teachers really do hold that as that's their responsibility to prepare their students for the AP test. So that will still be rigorous and a lot there for the students. And teachers are just having to adjust in terms of what do they need to cover synchronously and what needs to be covered asynchronously. And then metrics to evaluate the quality of distance learning compared to classroom learning. Yes, of course, I think that will come through what we're seeing come out of the engagement and grades of our students in the classroom, with anecdotal feedback from our teachers and our students and our parents. There's going to be lots of opportunities to provide feedback on how we're doing with distance learning so that we can adjust, make those adjustments as we go. For reopening, just sort of a quick response to this, we are really, we follow the guidance of county health. Our board is reviewing that often with leadership from the district office. And so we do need to be off the watch list. And we do have some plans in place for outdoor learning. Parent Club actually just deployed some of their reserves to provide furnishings for what outdoor classrooms might look like, so that we can move as quickly as possible when we are able to come back. Hopefully, whether that's in smaller groups or whatever that looks like, but there will be some outdoor classrooms available. And that is, I'm not sure if there's actually like a targeted metric of time. I know at the September 4th meeting was the next board meeting, was the next agreement to review where we're at with returning in a hybrid model. I don't think were there. So I would imagine at that September 4th meeting, they'll kind of identify their next date of when the governing board will review the county health orders and what we're able to do. And then the process for parents to meet with teachers regarding IEPs or 504s, that would be individual education plans or 504s for additional student supports for students who need some accommodations to access curriculum. Again, we really hold high value of that synchronous time and not wanting to take away students from that synchronous learning. So those have to happen either in the morning between 7:30 and 9. And then they can happen Monday afternoons, or they can happen on any class where a student doesn't have a class period. Teachers teach 5 of 7 periods, so they're available to meet during those periods that they're not teaching as well. And as terms of those specific meetings, by law, we'll be following up on an annual basis as required, and talk about what that looks like for that meeting and for that engagement. Those were the previously submitted questions. Just for the sake of time, I want to just make these few announcements, and then I'll just answer as many questions as I can before we need to leave here. I talked about that parent forum on race. Make sure you register for that. Our back to school night is on Thursday, August 20th. It starts at 6 o'clock. It will be a live webinar style parent meeting at 6. You'll get to hear from some of our parent support organizations, as well as a little bit more around Canvas and what that looks like. But then you'll have an opportunity. Teachers will be pre-recording a 8 to 10 minute video on their class and what it looks like under distance learning. They will share what synchronous learning will look like in their specific class, what asynchronous learning will look like in their specific class. They'll talk about their grading components and their syllabus and how to get in contact with them. And that will all be pre-recorded but made available that night. And we're encouraging parents to still just follow their student schedule as they watch those videos from teachers. There'll be a video for each prep that the teacher teaches. So if a teacher has world history and US history, they have 3 classes of world and 2 classes of US. They'll provide 1 video for world and 1 video for US history for that teacher. So you'll get the specific content needed for your child's specific class with that teacher. And then I also just want to encourage you, on our website, on the left-hand side of the website, you can sign up for really essential communication. It says like general interest and daily bulletin. And I would say right now, like both of those just really do have some essential information, from the school day schedule to direct messages from me about things that we need to engage in on our campus, or announcements about textbook distributions as needed. So I really encourage you to sign up for that communication. Make sure you're getting it. If you're having issues signing up or getting it, you can email my assistant, Joyce Larson. You can find her email on the website as well, but it's just JLARSEN@auhsdschools.org. I should have put that on there, and I'm sorry I didn't. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing the screen. It's been 90 minutes of listening in on this webinar, and we're hitting that 11:30 time. So Kristen or Angela, I know you've all been monitoring the Q&As that are coming in. Anything for like a couple questions? I know we'll go a little over time, but a couple questions for me to respond to.
Yeah, the truth is, Travis, we answered the vast majority of the questions just in real time back to the individual folks. The questions that are in there now are mostly around like parent access in Canvas, the observer status, and what people will then see as they join as a parent. So maybe you could talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so I did talk a little bit about they'll be able to join as an observer. So right now, all you'll see is just the home page of that teacher's class, and it usually has like a picture. It says like, I'm Mr. Bell, and I'm teaching English 3 and English 4, excited for the year or whatever. So you would just see that, but then you would also see the assignment page. And on the assignment page, you have both the title of the assignment and the grade. So that's what you would be able to see and have access to right now as a parent. once we're able to get the desktop rolled out, that gives you a little bit more view. And my understanding is you're actually able to do more of a unactive observer. So none of the links will be live for you to click, but you'll be able to see the different headings of the course modules that that students are going through, and that's what you'll be able to see moving forward. In terms of like, I believe when I was looking through the Q&A during the wellness, while wellness was sharing, this idea of, you know, the transparency of what teachers are teaching. Yes, absolutely. So that would be, you'd be able to see what they're teaching, but to make those links live, then it becomes a matter of parents being able to just drop into the class at any time and engage in the Zoom links or whatever discussion or asynchronous learning is happening. But you'll be able to see as we go. I do think there is a high level of transparency, so you can actually see what the assignments are and what they're supposed to be doing. Very similar to School Loop, where you could see the assignment and see the grade. That's kind of what it would look like.
Travis, the other question that came up a couple of times was about like prospective rolling blackouts and PG. Just you know, because 2020 is what it is. Could you talk about that for a moment?
Yeah, we actually are already having that conversation at the district level with Superintendent Dr. Nickerson and Associate Superintendent Aida Glemme and Amy McNamara, and then the 4 principals of the comprehensive sites around PSPS and what those public safety power shutoffs might entail under distance learning. So we'll be communicating out some of the processes that we have in place to support our students, our teachers, and our community during those. But it's a little bit of a work in development. As we hit this 110-degree day in the summer. So.
Yeah.
Any other specific questions? I haven't looked.
I guess the other thing, Travis, and I'm sorry if you spoke to this. I was listening to you the whole time, but I was also trying to respond to questions. You know, did you talk about access to the actual racial equity lessons? Do you think that will be available for parents? People were saying like, we'd love to have a roundtable discussion at dinner tonight. You know, so.
We're going to review those in more depth at the parent forum on race, I believe. And there is some access to like the homework assignments, like watching the video and the articles that the students are supposed to read after. I did a little bit of an outline in my message to the community yesterday, so you can see what the outline was. But we can certainly work on actually providing like maybe a link to the slides that parents can see what we went through for sure.
I would say the last batch of questions, Travis, are about like the fostering connections during cohort time and some of the like, I think people might like to hear a couple of specific examples from you of kind of what that looks like during that cohort time.
Yeah. I think these last 4 days are kind of a good example of what that looks like, where you have a teacher that is doing some rapport building, maybe an icebreaker check-in. Students have to go around and, you know, kind of share a highlight from summer, and then they're getting to know who that teacher is. The teacher is using our Zoom engagement techniques, such as breakout rooms and polling opportunities to keep students engaged. We really see this time as critical for that connection point. So providing some small group reflection, like I'm going to put you in breakout rooms and you're going to spend 3 minutes just sharing like what's one thing that was really hard about last week, and then getting kids in that time. It's a lot of like some of the similar stuff to what Casey and Alan what was sharing around social emotional learning, and how can we use that time to ground the students and help with some of that wellness check-in, as well as knowing that that's a time where you have this teacher that's kind of operating as like a case manager and kind of do a check-in individually with students. So sending students to breakout rooms and then pulling one student in at a time and just saying, hey, I noticed that you haven't turned in a couple assignments in your math class. I know I'm not your math teacher. Is there anything I can help with? Like that sort of stuff. So you have this engagement and connection with the teacher, opportunities to connect with students, and then deployment of curriculum that we think is really important for our students. So everything from conversations around equity to digital citizenship to critical thinking to how to be critical learners online and really assessing like what's credible information, what's not, media literacy, like what's not credible information. So how do we, using that time for some of that student and teacher engagement.
Can I just add to that included all of those things that are going to create like foster community and build relationships with our students and our our teachers, and our outside community are all essential education, including our, diversity, equity, and inclusion lessons. These are all essential, and they are all elements of the curriculum that we are providing for our students right now. Yes, we are providing our standard curriculum in terms of our academics, but we also firmly believe that this is also essential curriculum and essential information that we are providing for our students. So while it may be during a virtual cohort, it is all essential and vital and important for our students.
Well said.
Great.
Travis, I think the last couple.
I'm going to turn it over to Kristen and Angela and just see if there's anything from the parent perspective before we jump off here.
No, I think the questions that we've been monitoring, I think you guys have addressed, and Andrea and Mike have brought up.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you both, and thank you, Mike, Andrea, Kristen, and Angela, for helping monitor, respond to some of those questions that have come in. This is recorded. We'll publish. It'll be published on my YouTube page by the end of the day, and then we'll link it out in newsletters and on APC website. I know that there's so much more out there, and I would encourage you to utilize some of those resources that Casey and Alan shared to do your own sort of personal check-in, to ground yourself. As you work to support your students at home. It is a partnership. We see this as a partnership. So the fact that we had over 300 people register for this webinar, I know we hit, I think our max at one point was like around 150. That's huge, that many parents are tuning in to learn how to support their student. And we so value that partnership, and know that we are working hard to continue to uphold the trust that you've given us to support your students during this time with their academic progress. So thank you for tuning in. Thanks for your engagement and just continued support. And we will be back. I think it's a little less than a month when our next DONS dialogue is, but we'll be sharing out about that, and we'll look at some other aspects of distance learning and starting to get to hear from some of our department chairs of what distance learning looks like in our different curricular areas. So again, thank you so much. And with that, go Dons, have a wonderful weekend. Thank you.
Go Dons.